Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, should Arizona's Stand Your Ground law be changed? We'll hear from both sides of that issue and find out about new ASU research on how kids can best be taught to read. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Richard Rellis in for Ted Simons. Amazon announced today will be hiring 7,000 new employees nationwide, including some in Arizona. The company will be hiring workers for its distribution centers and customer service offices. The new jobs will come with stock grants and tuition reimbursement. Amazon promises to pay 30% more than traditional retail jobs. Arizona's law that allows you to defend yourself against a deadly threat was expanded a few years ago to allow you to stand your ground when outside of your home instead of having to retreat. Recently, Arizona Senator John McCain called for state lawmakers to revise the law in light of the Trayvon Martin shooting. Here to talk about Arizona's Stand Your Ground law is State Senator Steve Gallardo, who thinks the law needs to be revised, and State Representative John Kavanagh, who likes it just the way it is. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us on this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with you, Senator, because you're the one who's asking for a change. Why does a Florida incident require the need for Arizona to change its law?
And keep in mind, Arizona has always had some type of self-defense statutes on our books. That ain't anything new. But the one thing that the whole Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman situation out in Florida has done is made every legislature, now there's 31 legislatures, or 31 states, I should say, that have similar statutes on the books. All of them pretty much a little different. Our statute is much different than Florida. It's much more restrictive. However, I do believe it deserves to be looked at. A couple years ago, we passed a bill that would expand the so-called Castle Doctrine that was passed out in 2006. We have expanded to mean outside your home. However, the language, if you look at the language, it's interesting because in the bill itself, it states that anyone who is outside their home legally, and as long as they're not doing anything illegal, they're able to stand their ground. So anywhere, as long as you're anywhere, you're able to stand your ground. I think that needs to be looked at. I think that needs to be tailored down some. I think we need to start addressing some of the concerns like road rage. Road rage could at times be used as standing your ground if you're involved in a road rage. I don't think that was ever the intent of the legislature in terms of this, but I do believe it deserves a thorough look at. I think we need to review it and possibly make some modifications.
So like standing your moving ground, I guess. But I mean, but again, exactly. Was there something in the Florida case that you saw that made you think there was an injustice done or something needs to be changed?
I mean, let's be real here. George Zimmerman profiled a young teenager. He made all the wrong assumptions about this young man. He followed this guy, pursued him, and he shot him and killed him. So I think when you start looking at Arizona's statute, I think my biggest fear is those folks that normally would have walked away when dealing with stand your ground are now going to be inspired to do the exact opposite, and that's stand your ground, and also make the wrong assessment. I mean, they may assume that their life's in danger and use lethal force when their life is not in danger. So there's some concerns with the current language.
Representative Kavanagh, was this law designed to encourage people to stand their ground, or was there some problem this law was addressing when it was passed?
Well, this law was designed to let people use the basic self-defense justification without fear about having to go through a whole jury second-guessing. And I think to understand stand your ground, you first have to understand the basic law of self-defense in Arizona and almost every state. Right? To use force legally to defend yourself, you have to have a reasonable belief in the immediate necessity to use that force to defend yourself against somebody using unlawful force against you. Reasonable belief immediately necessary to defend yourself. Now, there are other factors that come into self-defense. There's proportionality. If somebody's just using physical force against you, you can't shoot them. That's not proportional. Okay? If you provoke an incident, you have to first communicate the fact that you want out of the fight before you use deadly force to defend yourself. And retreating is the other big factor. Now, going back to England, where we got most of our laws from, there was the Castle Doctrine, England Castle, which said you didn't have to retreat in your own home before you used deadly force. The idea being that if you were not in your own home and you could safely retreat, that you had an obligation to. The problem is that if it's immediately necessary for you to use force, there really is no retreat option. If it's not immediately necessary, sure, you can retreat. But the basic justification says there has to be an immediate necessity. Now, if you don't allow a stand your ground, then a person who is fully justified in defending themselves against an unlawful, violent attack might still go to jail for a homicide offense if the jury then second-guessed that person and said, you know, you probably could have run away safely. It makes no sense, and it exposes people to almost like to double jeopardy.
But you say might. I mean, I know that we've expanded the law. There was an incident involving a hiker 5-6 years ago, maybe a decade ago, where we allowed the expansion of self-defense. Now, was there an anecdotal reason? Has there, you say might, but was there someone who was
The Fish
close?
case had nothing to do with stand your ground.
Right.
The Fish case, the hiker in the woods, that's when we made a change, and we changed the self-defense from an affirmative defense to a regular defense,
So
shifting the burden of proof to the prosecutor. That's what
Right.
Fish was all about. It was a couple of years later that we decided to expand the principle that you don't have to retreat wherever you are. And there's two basic reasons. If you're a good lawful citizen, you're not breaking the law, you're legally where you're supposed to be, and somebody is threatening you with deadly force, you shouldn't have to expose yourself to potential danger by running away. And you shouldn't be second-guessed by a jury who, if they decide, even though you were justified, you could have run, that takes away the defense, and you're guilty of manslaughter. You go to prison for 20 years.
Now,
Not right.
Fish was, if I remember correctly, a little bit second-guessed by the jury, but you're saying that really didn't have a bearing on this
No.
law. Was there an anecdote, or was it just a fear brought forth, a fear that this could be used in court?
Well, it was simply brought forward that good people shouldn't have to retreat, and you shouldn't expose good people to liability for using force lawfully if a jury suddenly says, well, maybe they could have retreated. You know, we don't think you can use that.
Well, I mean, what happens if someone makes the wrong assessment? What happens if they assume that this other individual is going to use deadly force? I mean, that's one of my big concerns, is that someone makes the wrong assumptions, and that's exactly what happened with the Trayvon Martin case. Is George Zimmerman made all the wrong assumptions in regards to Trayvon Martin. There was a confrontation. They started swinging at each other, and now Trayvon Martin is dead. So what happens if someone makes the wrong assessment? And again, it's too broad. Under our current law, it doesn't matter where you're at. We're taking it outside the home. The home is a different argument, but we're taking it outside the home. We're taking it to the parks. We're taking it to the streets. We're taking it to the shopping centers.
But it does certainly seem as if a jury would still have the power to decide if a reasonable person was justified in using that
force. If a person makes the wrong judgment or a ridiculous judgment, then they will not have a reasonable belief. And the basic defense will not apply, and they'll be guilty. But I would like to comment on one thing that Representative Guerrero said. Stand your ground was not an issue in the Trayvon Martin case. And it's not an issue in Arizona. I spoke to County Attorney Montgomery, who has a use of force review panel that's been reviewing these cases, over 50 of them, and in none of them was stand your ground an issue.
And no one used that defense, though. No one has used stand your ground as a defense over the last 2 years since it's been enacted. And first of all, going back to the George Zimmerman, and I hate to talk about the Florida case, but it was part of the case. I mean, law enforcement officers did not arrest George Zimmerman for the first 6 weeks because of that argument that was made by George Zimmerman at the very get-go. He did claim stand your ground.
No, he did not.
And because
He did
of that,
not.
and because of that, the first 6 weeks, there was no arrest. It delayed the investigation of the homicide. Even the judge herself, in the jury instructions, made it part of her little debate. But nonetheless, let's go back to the Arizona law. I think it deserved an actual discussion.
Before the trial even started, the first step in a Florida stand your ground defense is the defense attorneys ask for a defend your ground hearing. Trayvon Zimmerman's defense attorneys said, no, we're not claiming stand your ground. And independent witnesses who saw the attack and saw Trayvon Martin on top of Zimmerman, the injuries that he had, the forensic evidence, all point to the fact that when the deadly force was used, Trayvon Martin was on top of Zimmerman, using force against him. You can't retreat when somebody's on top of you.
Well, there obviously was evidence and eyewitnesses and audio testimony that went the other way, but I guess...
Not with respect to the encounter. When the force was used, right, when the force was used, Trayvon Martin was on top of Zimmerman using force against him. There is no way to retreat when you're pinned to the ground. So stand your ground was not an issue in this case.
But I think
so
what
to bring
you,
it up
but
now
I think,
makes no sense.
But I think what the senator is bringing up is a juror who said she believed George Zimmerman got away with murder, but was able to find a way through the laws to...
Our courts do not find people innocent. Our courts find you guilty or not guilty. If there's not enough evidence to convict you, then you're not called innocent, you're called not guilty. And that's what happened in this case. And nobody will know the truth because the only one who can testify to all of the unknowns is Mr. Zimmerman.
Let's go right back to Arizona law, and that is the fact that it is too broad. It is a relatively new law that was passed out a couple of years ago. No one, as far as I know, unless there's another county that someone has used this actual defense, but I think it deserves a review. I think we need to look at it. I think we need to perhaps revise it.
You're not proposing language today. You're not saying this is what it should look like.
No, definitely not. I really believe that we need to bring in the prosecutors. We need to bring in the defense bar. We need to bring in law enforcement and have an actual debate on this particular
Because the law now says you are under no obligation to retreat. Does repealing that or altering that then make some form of the state telling people they should retreat?
But Richard, the idea that someone engaged in some type of road rage can actually use this defense, as far as I know, again, no one has actually used this defense, but the idea that someone can use this defense while they are engaged in road rage, I think it's a big concern. I think it needs to be looked at. Anyone that does not want to look at it is just being reckless.
But again, no one has brought road rage up against this.
No one has.
I have no issue looking at this. I've looked at all the studies, all the data, all the claims, and they all simply confirm what a supermajority of the Senate agreed to in 2010, what 57 representatives voted for in 2010, what Governor Napolitano signed in 2010, a good law called Stand Your Ground.
That was Governor Brewer.
And that's
I guess that's what's one thing to ask you about. You mentioned studies and data, and you talked about the law being designed. It was passed pretty quickly with very little discussion. And I was going to ask you, was this law carefully considered by you before you passed it?
There are 18 states have it. The state of Florida reviewed their Stand Your Ground law after the Trayvon Martin incident, and they confirmed that it was a good law.
When you voted for this law, did you take care of the
I have a
consideration
PhD in criminal justice. I was a cop for 20 years. I think it's a good law. And by the way, Stand Your Ground is a race-neutral law.
Sure.
It can be used just as much by a young black male defending themselves against a skinhead than it can otherwise.
Drawing on your law.
You're the one who said racial profiling.
Right.
It's a race.
In the Florida case,
it's a race-neutral law.
Sure.
And you know what? Minorities and women need to have stand your ground. Yes.
Given your law enforcement experience, Port Authority Police, law enforcement testified against this bill. Did that weigh into your thinking at all?
Some law enforcement did.
Maricopa County Sheriff's. Maricopa County, no law enforcement testified for it. Maricopa County Sheriff's Office testified against it. The Association of Chiefs of Police from Arizona, which I assume represents most Arizona departments.
No. Okay. What you have chiefs who are political appointees. Generally, law enforcement officers, the rank and file, don't necessarily agree with the politicians.
And this law was brought, again, one hearing and then a vote by the Citizens Defense League. Who are they, and do they wield a lot of power at the legislature?
They've been lobbying for years. They're quite effective. But don't forget, County Attorney Bill Montgomery, who prosecutes these cases, has said that stand your ground is not an impediment to prosecution, and it's not even it isn't even an issue in these cases.
But the only person who testified for it was Dave Kopp, the president of the Arizona Citizens Defense League. You're saying it's not like that group wields too much power that you're afraid of them, or you're afraid of they're going to be a primary challenge.
They're an Arizona group, and I don't think that they intimidated 18 states to pass this good law.
What do you think of the Arizona Citizens Defense League? How much power do they have over your fellow lawmakers?
They have tremendous power. And you look at what has happened over the last few years here in the state legislature, and because of the lobbying efforts of this organization, I mean, we have pretty much eliminated our CCW laws. We have made guns available just about everywhere. But going right back to this law, I think it deserves a debate. And because of the fact there's been little discussion, little debate, I wasn't in the legislature in 2010. However, because very little debate and discussion, I believe we should come back and actually review it. I believe there is some legitimate reasons on why we should review it and possibly make some changes. The idea, like I said, the idea that someone can be involved in road rage and claim stand your ground is extremely outrageous.
And we might get out of here on a kumbaya moment, because it sounds like you wouldn't mind a hearing to at least look at it and see what's going on.
We're doing that right now, and we can certainly discuss it at the legislature. But, you know, the task force in Florida, 19 citizens and prosecutors and defense attorneys looked at it and said it's a good law. It shouldn't be changed except for a few minor tweaks unrelated to stand your ground.
It's totally different, though. Again, the Florida law is much different than the Arizona law.
It's a little more expansive.
It is. We're much more restrictive. Every state is different. Every legislature is going to, I would assume, go back and review some of these new laws on their books. We should do the exact same thing. This is only 2 years old. It hasn't been used. We should not wait for a Trayvon Martin incident for us to come back and review it. Let's review it now. Let's have
and the senator, our senior senator from Arizona has asked for a review, and you would be open to at least a little look at it.
All laws should be reviewed, especially when people are questioning them. But I will say this, I'm glad that Senator Gallardo has changed his position, because at the press conference where he called for this review, he said that these laws are fundamentally unacceptable and should be addressed. I'm glad that you now have an open mind and you realize that that they could be okay, and we'll just look at the facts.
Well,
we should actually look at it. I believe it should be more narrowed in scope. I think the idea that anyone can be anywhere and be able to utilize this argument. I mean, we are taking it outside the home. It's no longer the castle doctrine. I mean, you can be anywhere in the state of Arizona and utilize this stand your ground and make the wrong assessment or assumptions about someone and actually utilize this.
Well, we do know that if there is a debate on this, it will be lively and engaging like this has been for the last few minutes. Gentlemen, I thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Climb east along US 60, approximately 55 miles from Phoenix, and you'll come to a marker for Picket Post Mountain. Early Mexican residents called it Tordillo Mountain after small birds in the area. In 1870, the soldiers of Indian fighter General George Stoneman renamed it Picket Post Mountain for the sentinels they posted here high above infantry camp established at its base. Within 8 years, a town of 2,000 called Picket Post, later Pinal City, sprang up to work the Silver King mine, Arizona's richest silver strike, before it petered out. Today, thousands flock to the foothills of Picket Post Mountain to stroll through Boyce Thompson Arboretum, home to more than 6,000 plant species and 270 kinds of birds.
New reading standards will take effect this year in Arizona. Move On When Reading will require third grade students to score better than the Falls Far Below category in reading or be retained. Arizona State University researcher Carol Connor last month unveiled findings from a 3-year study of several hundred students indicating that children need customized, sustained reading instruction from 1st through 3rd grade to become capable readers. Ms. Connor joins me now to discuss her findings in light of the new reading standards. I read that very carefully, knowing I was being watched by an expert.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so move on when reading. And I know you've studied how students learn, but let's talk a little bit about that requirement. It seems like getting kids above meets far below, or whatever that standard was, shouldn't be that hard of a bridge, but do we have 3rd graders who just can't read?
We do, and it's not just Arizona's problem. If you look at the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the U.S., across the nation, only 58% of children actually are reading at or above basic levels. And that's in Arizona. It's 66 nationwide.
So we're doing a little better than nationwide.
No, you're doing a little worse than
58 or
nationwide. I reversed them.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So it's 66 nationwide, 58% in Arizona. So we do potentially have a lot of 3rd graders that will need to be retained.
Is 3rd grade sort of a magic number, magic grade year?
It is. It's actually a good one to choose. There's excellent research that shows that children who aren't reading at grade level by the end of 3rd grade are more likely to become teen parents. They're more likely to go to jail, referred for special ed, drop out of high school. And so it's important that children are reading proficiently, or at least at basic levels by 3rd grade, if they're going to go on and be career ready, certainly if they're going to be college ready.
Is there something in the cognitive growth of kids, or the brain development of kids, that makes 3rd grade a special time?
So it's a combination of things. One is, yes, you're right, cognitively. Children are developing the capacity to take these very abstract symbols and attach meaning to them. And they get increasingly better at doing that, starting in kindergarten and moving forward through 3rd grade. It also has a lot to do with how we teach children. 1st grade, 2nd grade, we know we have to teach them how to read. 3rd grade, they're moving into what we call reading to learn, where they're expected to use reading as a tool to understand what it is, so they have to understand well enough to learn what they're reading. And this is an important transition. It usually happens for most kids in 3rd grade, and certainly by 4th grade.
I think a lot of the people who've gotten, we just dip our toes into reading research. We know about phonics and whole language,
right.
But your research pretty much says we're missing the ball, that it's not one or the other. It's for each individual student, we have to find the best thing that works.
Right.
That sounds like a really tall order.
It is a tall order, but teachers can do it. So we just finished a study in Florida that you mentioned, where we conducted a randomized control trial, which is really important in education if you're going to figure out what works. So we recruited 1st graders and their teachers, and we randomly assigned them to individualized reading instruction or to a math intervention. And then we followed the 1st graders into 2nd grade and recruited their teachers, re-randomized, again, reading or math, and did the same thing for 3rd grade. And so children could be in the reading intervention all year, or they could be in the math intervention all 3 years, or they could have some combination. And it was really clear the children who had the individualized reading 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade were reading much better, and on average almost a 5th grade level. These were children, about half of them qualified for free or reduced lunch, so we're not talking about easy children to teach. If we look at, if we think about the NAEP and Arizona's performance on the NAEP, 94% of the children who got differentiated reading instruction all 3 years were reading at or above basic levels by the end of 3rd grade.
And is it possible to get what they need to them? You said there's a computer program you're working on that might roll out?
There's a computer program that we developed back in 2004, and we used with our first set of teachers back in Florida. We've now run 8 different randomized controlled trials from kindergarten through 3rd grade, and we discovered that It's not as simple to differentiate instruction as everybody thinks, that it's the children's vocabulary.
There's a lot of moving parts.
There's
there.
a lot of
And-
moving
and
parts.
the lawmakers arguing took some of our time, but
Yes, so I'll be
but
quick.
it's doable.
It's doable, and what the software does is it uses algorithms and kids' test scores to recommend amounts and types of reading instruction for every kid in the class. And that seems to be what makes the difference, is this differentiated reading instruction.
Well, let's hope it goes. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for
That's-
having me.
That's all we have time for tonight on Arizona Horizon. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.